Are these two being in the room going to be too distracting? I've got my kittens in the room and I'm wondering whether or not this is just going to be like way too distracting because they're wandering around in the background. Let me know if, because they're going to be in here in this video, if this is a very annoying way to do things and having the kittens in the room is a bother, I can not have them in the room in the next video. But they're kittens and they are going to be making noise, so please bear that in mind if you just hear like random purring or stuff like that where they've just jumped up on my chair and they're desperately trying to cause trouble. Here's the other one. Right, now I've shared the knowledge that I have cats with you, I'll move on to what this actual video is about. First of all, it has been a while, hasn't it? I haven't done a cosplay video in a little while. I think my most recent one was my makeup tutorial for Hitoshi Shinso, which I do want to remake because I'm not totally happy with. You'll notice I do a lot of like makeup video remaking because my makeup changes and I figure out how to do things that I think look better for the specific character. This video is a continuation of my How to Cosplay series, which is where I sit down and I explain cosplay to you from the most basic level all the way up until like the level I feel comfortable speaking at. There we go, baby. I have 2 other episodes of this series. Episode 1 is based around choosing your costume for the first time and what costume you should choose for your very first cosplay. And episode 2 is about researching your costume, so where you can find resources, what kind of resources you should be using, and the bare minimum of research you should be able to do for a costume before you should really choose to do it. You can obviously not follow all of these rules, they're not specifically rules for cosplay, but they make cosplay a lot easier, so that's kind of how I roll. I am by no means a professional, I am not paid to cosplay, I have not been trained in cosplay in any formal sense. I just taught myself this stuff, and if I can do it, you can, because I definitely was not born with cosplay gifts in any way. Now, for all of my previous videos, there are links down below, and this is in a playlist called How to Cosplay, so if you want to catch up on the whole series, it is there for you. The resources are available. So, in our previous episode, we did our research into the costume we chose in episode 1. And we have gathered many resources so we are able to start deconstructing our cosplay. Now, what is deconstruction? Because that is a big old word, and it's a big old word that is used in many different ways. For cosplay, deconstruction is to look at your costume and take it apart to its most basic levels. That sounds a little complicated, but I will go into depth as what that is. Now, when I'm deconstructing, I look at a costume with the stuff that I need to own, the stuff that I need to buy, and the stuff that I need to make. Now, buy and own sound like they're the same thing, but it's not necessarily the same thing. If I'm looking at a costume and I go, that definitely means I need an airbrush. I don't own an airbrush, and right now I don't have the resources to buy an airbrush, so that would make it a costume that I would choose not to do yet, or I would choose to delay or try and find a different way of doing what I would be planning to do with said airbrush. So, those things are stuff that you wouldn't feasibly buy for one cosplay. It's a little bit bigger, a big financial investment, and if you don't have it already, it might mean that you want to choose a different costume. Buy is an obvious thing. It can be anything from the materials of the costume, so the fabrics and things like that, and it can also be the solid elements that you could buy. Back when I was in the Naruto fandom, the olden days of the Naruto fandom, back when I was in that fandom, there was no way in hell I was going to make sandals, so I just bought them. I bought the sandals that I needed, and I didn't need to modify them at all, because they were available to be bought completely able to be worn, just like that. And you can do that with any element to your costume if it's able to be bought. If you can find it online, you can buy it. There's no shame in being a cosplayer who just buys most of their costume, if not all of their costume. A lot of cosplayers who take their making cosplays really seriously, like I do choose to make 90% of my costumes. Even I bought them and stuff. My PE uniform from Boku no Hero is bought, and I love it, and it meant that all of my group had exactly identical costumes. So it's fun, and there's nothing wrong with taking a easier way of doing things. if it's available to you. And finally, there's what you need to make. What you need to make is a different thing entirely. These ones, you just need to look at the item and go, okay, they have a chest plate of armour. And that will then be taken down into tasks, which we will address later on. Now, this is a lot of different elements and it can get a bit confusing, so I always use an app to try and help me with that. The app that I choose to use, this is obviously not sponsored, the app that I choose to use is Cosplanner. Now, Cosplanner is quite an old app, but it works really, really well. It has a lot of different sections to it, and the sections can be taken off from, you can either have stuff to make, stuff to buy, and you can also have tasks as a separate section as well. You can upload images into Cosplanner, and it just makes everything so much easier because it's all under one specific costume. You don't have to have multiple lists written down in paper. You have this app that you can just have on your phone, and then when you're shopping for, say, your fabrics and stuff, you can just get your references up and go, oh yeah, that fabric would work, and done. You can even post your own progress on it. You can put progress pictures in a separate section, and it's great, it looks good. And it's a really functional app. I don't have to worry about it just crashing or doing something stupid. It's always just working and available to me. The best thing I find about Cosplanner is that it actually has a deadlines set as well, so you can actually set a deadline for each costume, which is super helpful to stop you doing con crunch and getting really, really stressed last minute. So, the elements of the costume that you're going to be looking for when you're doing a deconstruction. Now, these are just the really basic ones, as I said. The first thing I start with every single costume is their hair, if they have hair. There are characters that don't, and in this case I would also put just like scalp, because if you do need to wear a bald cap and stuff like that, that would fall under the hair section. But hair is usually where I would decide on the wig I need to buy, and I would also be just sectioning that off as, okay, blue spiky wig, or curly black wig, stuff like that. So at this point you're literally just going, what is their hair like? Okay, this is their hair, done, this is what their hair is like. Makeup and prosthetics. Now when it comes to makeup and prosthetics, it can mean a lot of different things. For makeup, it's usually very basic stuff. If you just invest in stuff that you know will work and that you like, just go for it. You do not need to use high brand stuff, you do not need to use the same products that every makeup artist on YouTube is recommending. You just don't need it for cosplay. I always find the best tools I use are, I need a liquid eyeliner, I need a good foundation and concealer, and a good setting powder, and something good for my eyebrows, as well as a good nude palette. A lot of the time those are the ones that are really, really helpful. I do use things like mascaras and different coloured eyeshadows and blushes and things, like you'll find on my Kai cosplay I have blusher around my eyes because it makes him look a little bit more stressed. But a lot of the time you can get away with nude makeups and stuff like that. All the makeup I'm wearing right now is nude makeup, and I don't even have any eyeshadow on. Eyebrows is a very neglected part of this as well. A lot of the time with cosplays, their eyebrows are a really good way to try and signify how the character looks. So, good example, Kai Chisaki, so Overhaul from Boku no Hero, has very distinct wiggly shaped eyebrows that are very thin, and those really, really help to make you look like his character. So basically I just look at their face, and whatever reference you're using for this cosplay, you just look at the best reference you've got of their face and pick out the elements that make their face distinctive. So if it's a real person, you're going to want to look really in depth at what their facial structure is like versus yours. Now we'll stress in this stage, the makeup section, please don't change your skin tone for a cosplay. But back onto the changing of your features, that is a more acceptable thing to do. So if you're looking at a character who, say, has really, really chiseled cheekbones and you've got a round squishy face like moi, you can absolutely do that with makeup. There's tutorials online, I've done a couple myself, of contouring that will allow you to have a more defined cheekbone. Like right now I've got quite a bit of contouring on this side and this side, just here to try and make my face look a little bit more angular, but there's little things that you can do to make yourself look a little bit more like these real person characters. And as for anime characters, do they have really big wide set eyes? Well, there's loads and loads of tutorials where you can learn how to make your eyes look more like theirs, or ways that you can shape your eyebrows to look more like theirs, ways that you can contour your mouth or your nose and things like that to make yourself look a little bit more like that animated or real life character. I will go really in depth into every single one of these elements in a separate video, but right now this is just a basic outline, so when you're looking at your costume you can go, oh okay, I'm gonna need an eyeliner, I'm gonna need a white eyeliner, I'm gonna need a highlighter, so on. Now I did also mention prosthetics. A good example for this is Fenris from Dragon Age. Fenris from Dragon Age is an elf, so has pointed ears. And there's a lot of things you could do with his face to make yourself look more like him. Prosthetics wise, when I was planning how to do his costume, I planned out that I would make ear tips to make my ears pointed, and I would also make a prosthetic for this part of my nose to make it flat here, because all of the elves in the Dragon Age series have got flat across this point, so that nose doesn't curve in, it just goes flat. So I was going to make prosthetics for both of those. Now, if you have no experience with prosthetics at all, I would not really start on prosthetics. I would just do it as basic as you can. Buy some ear tips if you want to do an elf character and leave stuff like facial prosthetics out. But if you do feel like you're confident enough to do a facial prosthetic, it is a fun thing to point out how to make your costume a little bit more interesting. And again, as I said with the makeup thing, I'll do a whole video on prosthetics, I promise. Especially when I'm working on Fenris, you will get such an in-depth look at how I'm going to be doing all of his makeup. Other really basic prosthetics that you can buy online are pointed teeth, so fangs. If your character is stuff like Toga from Boku no Hero, or vampire characters like Lestat, characters like those are really good to use a fang prosthetic for, because they make an instant impact as, oh, it's that character, because it's quite a distinctive part of their face. You can also use fang prosthetics on your bottom part if you're doing stuff like an orc character. A lot of the time they have little tusks that go up from their lower part of their mouth, and that really helps to make your character look more distinctively like that D&D race. Eyes. This is one I get asked about a lot. I wear contact lenses for 90% of my cosplays. If I am not wearing contact lenses for a costume, it's because we have the exact same eye colour, and I've just neglected to do it. I only really use my real eyes if we have the exact same eye colour and the character is not an animated character, so they're like a real person. An actor's behind them, basically. That's the only times I wouldn't use contact lenses, but that's the thing, I've been wearing contact lenses for years. Contacts are not for everybody. There are members of our cosplay group who don't wear contact lenses. My dabby doesn't wear contact lenses and it's never been brought up as an issue. Some people physically cannot wear contact lenses and it can be seriously detrimental to their eyes. So please do not buy contact lenses from places that are not reputable places. I get contact lenses from loads of different places. I will be doing a full video on my contacts when I'm doing makeup on prosthetics. But I have also got a few videos where I talk about places I've got my contacts from before on my channel. But my natural eye colour is, let's go. There you go. That's my natural eye colour. They are sort of grey-blue colour. I have very pale eyes, so I do struggle to get contact lenses that don't show the pale part of my eye very well. And yeah, it's an issue, but it's all really trial and error, and also looking in sections that are recommended on websites for paler eye colours. If you have darker eyes, again, there are a lot of contacts that will show better on darker eyes than lighter ones. So just look into the reviews, read what people are seeing, and look at the photos people are posting in these reviews as well, because contact lenses can be a really complicated one. By no means do you need to use contacts though. Please do not harm yourself by putting contact lenses in when you know you shouldn't be wearing them, and please get a trained professional to put them in for you for the first time if you're going to be trying contact lenses. Go to an optician's, get them to put them in for you. Your eyes will thank you. These are a really important part of your body and you don't want to mess with it. Armour! Armour's a fun cosplay thing. I'm gonna use Fenris again because he's a really good example of this. Armour can come in so many different types. Fenris from Dragon Age has got armour that goes across his chest, and he's also got armour that goes up his shoulders, and ones like gauntlets on his gloves and things like that. Armour I section off into one section initially, which is just armour. Is there armour there? And then I will break it down into things like hand armour, upper arm armour, chest armour, facial armour, and anything like that. When you're looking at a costume with armour, you do need to bear in mind that there are multiple different ways to do armour, some of them more effective than others and some of them more easy than others. Some forms of cosplay making look really amazing and effective but are quite hard for new cosplayers to get into. Stuff like foam crafting armour and warbler armour can be quite a difficult stretch when you've never made an armour piece before. My first ever armour pieces were made out of cardboard and I was proud of them at the time, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. However, I will be doing tutorials on stuff like foam crafting armour, and I will be doing a couple of warbler tutorials. I don't use warbler an enormous amount, but it is very helpful for some details in cosplays. And I will also be touching on some other techniques I've been using for cosplay armour and things like that. But if you want a basic idea of how I've been using foam to make cosplays, go have a look at my Kaichisaki beak tutorial. That's a really good basic starting point for using foam for cosplay. Tops. Tops is anything like a shirt or a top part of your cosplay. So a shirt, a jacket, like a vest, anything like that. All of those would be underneath tops. So you look at your costume and you just really basically go, what is on the top part of their body? Okay, he's wearing a jacket, a shirt, and a vest. So you can see all of those on the cosplay. Then you go, okay, shirt, jacket, vest. That's the top part. I would also, at this point, write down the details of it. So stuff like for my Kai cosplay, I was like, okay, he's got a bomber jacket, green khaki bomber jacket, big fluffy blacky purple collar, and his sleeves are always rolled up. So at that point I would write down all of those things on that jacket, and then I would go, okay, black suit shirt, there you go. And that's the top part of Kai. Bottoms, so whatever they're wearing on the bottom half of their body. It can be anything from a skirt to booty shorts to literally just leggings to suit pants, anything like that. But whatever they're wearing on the lower part of their body, that's what you would write in this section. Now you can include tops and bottoms into one thing if they were wearing a one piece, so something like a jumpsuit or a dress or anything like that. But I still do deconstruct them separately just so I know the details of it. If it's a dress, say like what's the bodice like, and then what is the skirt like. Shoes, so whatever they are wearing on their feet, if anything. I do recommend if they are barefoot, still wear shoes. Do not go to a convention barefoot. Your feet will thank you and the people around you will thank you because it's unhygienic to walk around barefoot anyway. But you are going to look at your costume and just go, what kind of shoes are they wearing? Okay, they're wearing massive goth boots. Cool, I need some goth boots. And just write that down as a separate section. Accessories, this is anything on the costume that is not the previously described things. So on Kai he has a tie, so I would put that down. On Dabby he has two belts that cross over each other on his waist. Kai's gloves, what else is there? Hitoshi Shinso, his scarf. So anything that isn't previously described in any of the other areas, sunglasses, anything like that, just pop them on this section. This is your accessories. This is something you need to keep track of because if it's a really important accessory, you do not want to forget about it and then be running around like a mad thing right before a convention trying to find this really important prop or really important element to your costume. Speaking of props, the last one is props. I don't do props that often, honestly. I tend to leave them off unless they are really, really crucial. I had the baseball bat for Harley Quinn, and that's kind of like one of the ones I've had. I have the sword for Genji, but But yeah, a lot of the time I do leave props off. I am trying to improve my prop game lately, and props can not just be something you carry. One thing I'm working on for Hawks from Boku no Hero is he has enormous wings. So I am making wings to go with that, and I would consider those a prop because they're an extra part of his costume. Now, props are a quite complicated section, and they will get a lot of looking at in a later video, but basically your understanding of it is that props are anything that is a extra to your costume that could further the way it looks. So something like a sword, a spear, a shield, wings, anything like that, a doll, a book, anything that would make the costume better, but isn't really part of the cosplay. In the next video, I will be looking at budgeting and time planning for your costume, as well as the actual breakdown elements of each element you've chosen. So something like a wig, what stuff do you need to make your wig? And a shirt, what kind of stuff do you need for a shirt? And we'll be doing that with me actually deconstructing costumes with you, and you're going to look at how we're actually breaking them down as we go along. So the costumes I'm hoping to be working on are Hawks from Boku no Hero, and I'm also going to run through a breakdown I did for Fenris from Dragon Age, so you guys can get a really in-depth idea of how I break down a costume and what elements go into costumes like that. I've chosen 2 complicated costumes just purely because these ones are going to give me the best opportunity to show you every tiny detail you could element these down into, but by all means every single costume could be done really basically and not to this level of depth. And if it's an easy costume where it's just like, okay, I need a dress, a wig, a this and that, and it's all stuff you could just buy, easy, just do it like that. But the next video will be tackling those in-depth deconstructions of costumes that are getting a little bit more complicated. So thank you very much for watching. I have been Jared Kennedy, and please tune in next time if you want to see more cosplay stuff, and if you want to see progress on cosplays I'm working, as well as a convention vlog, hopefully at the end of the month. So thank you very much for watching, and as always, remember to be creepy.